Okay, we are. Now let me try this again. Okay. All right. All right. We are actually live this time. Corey, unfortunately, cannot do this with me, and I don't know how to talk with just myself here. So I thought I would try doing it this way. Um, but the topic of this podcast, which are also recording for audio, and I hope the audio comes clear since we got issues with it last time, and I think I know what the issue was that I hopefully resolved this time. But if not, Mark, the guy who our good friend that we met in London, who makes sure to let us know every week. I hope it is okay for you. So we are talking about Bitcoin Unlimited today, and Bitcoin Unlimited is a node implementation of Bitcoin Cash, but that's not what we're talking about, because Bitcoin Unlimited is also a node implementation of Bitcoin SV. That's also not what we're talking about. We're talking about what the words Bitcoin Unlimited mean. It's a dictionary, right? So you maybe we can pull up a dictionary and just look up the words unlimited. I actually wish I could figure out how to share my screen, but I cannot. So you're going to have to deal with that. But that's fine. So let's see here. Bitcoin, or sorry, unlimited is defined as not limited, unrestricted, unconfined, boundless, infinite, vast, without any qualification or exception, unconditional. Very interesting, right? So Bitcoin Limited has the node implementation has a very broad, long history, and it did a lot of good work to oppose the small block side of things. If we're going to take the name literally, then what they should really stand for is Bitcoin without limits, Bitcoin unrestricted, and a boundless Bitcoin, right? And so this is very important because Satoshi Nakamoto, when he created Bitcoin, he had a lot of ideas around what Bitcoin was supposed to be, right? So everyone, there's obviously the BTC core camp that has completely botched any definition of what Satoshi meant when he talked about Bitcoin. And I meant to get this up earlier, but Satoshi had like a very interesting quote that no one brings up. Even when we were dealing with, when we were all united as big blockers under Bitcoin Cash, there was a quote that still didn't come up that much, and especially leading up into the fork last November, it never got brought up. And let me see if I can find it here, right? So Satoshi Nakamoto, he said very specifically, it doesn't hit a scale ceiling. Let's see if we can get the whole quote here for everyone to understand, right? And this is important, right? So Satoshi to Mike Hearn from the very, very beginning. This is 2009. Okay, to put it in perspective, he wrote, the existing Visa credit card network processes about 15 million internet purchases per day worldwide. Bitcoin can already scale much larger than that with existing hardware for a fraction of the cost. It never really hits a scale ceiling. He talks about Moore's Law, of course. He says, even if Bitcoin grows at crazy adoption rates, which unfortunately it did not, and we all know why that happened, I think computer speeds will stay ahead of the number of transactions, right? So this is very important. But the reason why we're even talking about Bitcoin Unlimited is because Unlimited, we can assume that Bitcoin Unlimited was started talking about the unlimited block size, right? So they wanted the block size to be uncapped, unbounded. That was the end goal of why Bitcoin Unlimited was started. But maybe we can just talk about how Bitcoin SV has actually taken it is now the only node implementation that I know of about Bitcoin, whether we're talking about Core, ABC, BU, XT, that is actually taking steps to make Bitcoin itself unlimited. And remember what we defined unlimited as: unrestricted, unconfined, boundless, and infinite. Okay, this is very important because that doesn't just mean block size. Okay, so block size is very important when you're talking about, okay, what does it mean to be a unbounded Bitcoin? But there's some other things that are involved in there that allows innovation to occur on top of the base Bitcoin layer. The big news of today, so shout out to Steve Shatters, who coined the term the unfucking. That is apparently what we're calling this. We are now calling the removal of all of the insane restrictions and things that don't allow Bitcoin to be unlimited to be removed from the software. And those are things that have been going on since the days of Core, right? And so we started this a long time ago, or I started a whole project a little bit ago. What the goal is our end goal. We will do this at some point, and this is part of the stuff we're trying to do this whole year, is to go through from the very beginning of when Satoshi released the code, and let's actually trace each change that's been made to the code, right? So this is something we're working on. It's taking much longer than I imagined it would, but the goal here is to understand, okay, what are all the things that have been introduced, and were they always meant to be there? So the big news of today is that Steve Shatters is apparently responsible for a 17 kilobyte amount of data that was put into Opportun in one single transaction. Now, this is very significant. This is very, very significant. I don't think people understand how significant it is just yet, but we're going to help you understand if you don't yet. Okay. So 17 kilobytes. That's not that much at all in the grand scheme of the world we live in today, right? But when Bitcoin Cash forked, and now I'm trying to remember which fork it was. If anyone knows, you can let me know. But the original fork, I think it was when Bitcoin Cash split. If it wasn't, it might have been the one after that. But they increased the size of Opportun. So Opportun has slowly over time been getting, it was slowly diminished, smaller and smaller. That's part of, again, that series we're going to release that I think people will find interesting. You can kind of see Opportun originally in the original code, unbounded, no restrictions placed on it. Eventually restrictions were added in. Opportun was increased with the Bitcoin Cash hard fork. It was then increased again, I believe. And I really should have been prepared for this. But 222 bytes, I believe, was the last limit. So that's the limit that Bitcoin Cash had. And if you go to memo.cash on the ABC chain today, that's the limit, 222 bytes. Okay. So 17 kilobytes, if you don't know, is 1700 bytes, right? So Steve Shatters introduced 1700 bytes into Opportun in one single transaction. Now, the crazy thing that happened today that no one understands yet, the people are not appreciating it. You can introduce, I might be getting my numbers met. You can now have 1,000 kilobytes, 10,000 kilobytes, 10,000 kilobytes. And I hope I'm not getting this wrong. If I am, tell me. 10,000 kilobytes in one single Opportun and in one transaction. Anyone want to correct me, or is it 10,000 or it's 1,000? It's one of those. Okay. I believe it's 10,000. It might be 1,000. Regardless, it's 1,000 kilobytes. I'm pretty sure about that. 1,000 kilobytes. Now it's important because you start to think, okay, so what can I start doing with that, right? A very simple example that Unwriter came up with, which this isn't a new concept, but he in one transaction hosted a website that is now serverless. So a serverless website, right? Serverless website can now exist just in the Bitcoin blockchain. And as long as there are nodes running Bitcoin, you can pull that web page in. Now, I think the example he gave, which was alice.bitdb.network, I believe image and the index .js or whatever he was using. index.html. It might have even just been simple. I think that was being stored somewhere, but his point being anyone could just copy those two things and run the page on their own. But as the data limits inside a transaction increase, you can start doing more with Bitcoin. So I'm going to give you a few examples. So now we have all this extra space in Opportune. With just 33 bytes, or 300 bytes, sorry. And their transaction examples, again, I wish I could show my screen. Don't know how to do that with what I did here, unfortunately. Sorry, everyone. You can start encrypting data. Okay, so this is very important, right? So previously in Opportune, if I wanted to, and now there are ways around this, which the Keyport guys figured out. But in one single transaction, if I wanted to encrypt a string, so let's say memo, for example, right? So if we're all used to using memo.cache, and you have your tweet, which again is limited to those 220 bytes. Whatever you're posting on memo.cache, if you want to encrypt that and put it into Opportune, you now are over the limit, right? So you can't actually encrypt that data. So start thinking about this, right? So even just encrypted Opportunes were too big for the previous limit that was there. Now, none of this is new, right? People have been talking about uncapping Opportune for a very long time now, but none of that is new whatsoever. In fact, the original push data had op push data, which is another opcode to push data onto the stack. It was 4.3 gigs, I believe. That was the initial limit as to how much you could actually put on the stack. And that was a hardware restriction. Okay. So the amount of data that was supposed to be pushed on the stack should have never, ever been restricted. Was never restricted to begin with. It became restricted over time. So if we want to talk about what Bitcoin Unlimited is, okay, this is what blows my mind. So you can argue all you want about, okay, this is what we need to increase the block size. This is what we need to, we can't have sustained 23 megs, right? Because then the laptops will fall off, right? But ignore all of that stuff. Ignore all of that stuff. Bitcoin SV, the node implementation, has been keeping their head down, has not been making us think about it, about anything. And silently today, they're just like, oh, by the way, you can now produce, you can have 1,000 kilobytes in Opportune. Ta-da. We've unrestricted Bitcoin for you as an app developer. Start to understand all of the things that you can start building, where in one transaction, you can insert 1,000 kilobytes into the blockchain. And then that can be retrieved. Right? And there's only one Bitcoin implementation that is committed to unrestricted Bitcoin. Only one. Bitcoin SV. No other node implementation is actually thinking about how do we unrestrict Bitcoin? How do we unlimit its potential? They can say, oh, we're doing that, right? We're going to get there. We're going to get to blocks, whatever. By the way, today in the same exact day, Bitcoin SV has announced that they are prepared to sustain 64 meg blocks in a public stress test that will be done on February 11th, I believe. It was impossible, I thought, without CTOR. It was impossible with all these other things. There's a quote of Omri saying like, oh, we can't advertise, we can do 32, right? And of course, SV did the 103 meg that one time. But regardless, we're gonna show sustained 64 meg blocks. Now, I've watched the Bitcoin Cash developer meetings, the meetings that they've been having. They're working on things like Schnorr, malleability fixes, things that really like, fine. Don't care. Really don't care about them, about what they're doing anymore. I wish them luck, but I don't see a future there. They're not actually helping you, whoever you are, build applications in businesses on top of Bitcoin. They're not actually removing the restrictions that are already there for you to build killer applications on top of Bitcoin. And I say this as someone who's been working on something that I've been waiting. I was trying to figure out a solution, how to get around the Opportune limit, because I wanted to encrypt data into Opportune and then be able to decrypt that and read it in, right? And I just been working on that with a good friend of mine, and just found out. Look at that, transactions on the blockchain, doing everything we wanted to do. Surprise today because opportunity is unrestricted. The amount of things that we can now do, and next after this is push data. Let's keep unrestricting push data, but this is what everyone's been talking about. This is what SV's entire vision has been from the very beginning. Uncap the block size, aggressively increase the block size, and unrestrict Bitcoin from having limits. Okay? Why would an organization called Bitcoin Unlimited be for anything else? Does anyone know? Anyone have any idea? Anyone aware of why Bitcoin Unlimited is not for actually unlimiting Bitcoin? So this is where we're at. I think why I'm so excited about what I saw today is that this is the first time we've seen, I mean, since the fork, an actionable difference between SV and BCH, right? Really, you could argue, obviously, the block size was an important thing. We were all excited that we actually proved that they were wrong about the limits of the software. But what this is important is that it shows that we can now build things on top of Bitcoin that people haven't even been able to envision doing before, because now we're less restricted. Okay. So start thinking about this as a file share system. So you have bitcoinfiles.com, I believe, right now, which is built. It's on Bitcoin Cash. Things are being spread out across transactions and being parsed in later. Okay. Just start thinking about this concept of what Craig had presented called his metanet. He's calling it metanet, right? Start imagining if you can start pushing large amounts of data onto the chain, retrieve the data, reference the data in future transactions, and keep that cycle going. You start to build something very interesting, and you start to understand Bitcoin as this commodity ledger that everyone's been, that the buzzword was in London. It was commodity ledger, and I loved it. I thought it was the perfect. It really helps you understand how are we going to appeal to business. Well, very simple. You're going to give them an immutable, serverless commodity ledger. So the reason why calling this Bitcoin Unlimited is twofold, right? Number one, Bitcoin Unlimited is a joke as an organization. So I apologize to anyone that is in Bitcoin Unlimited. It's a complete joke. Okay, it's a democracy that decides if the code changes to Bitcoin were supposed to be done via democracy, then that would have been spelled out in the white paper. There's a governance model spelled out in the white paper that has nothing to do with democracy. It's a joke because Omri Sachet constantly does his shitlord thing and just votes for whatever the hell he wants. Like, what did he vote for? He voted to sell all Unlimited's BCH funds for SV. That's something he just does. Like, he just does that to be a dick. You know what I mean? So that's how we're going to start deciding things, right? The problem is now, of course, Bitcoin Unlimited is now forked into two divisions. It really has no business deciding anything at all. Let's just be honest. It has no business really deciding the future of anything. There were people in Bitcoin Unlimited that wanted to push for this like quasi-democratic Nakamoto consensus solution to decide problems. But the point here being, why aren't developers that are working on Bitcoin reference implementations working on solving these problems? Why did it take until Bitcoin SV came around and really Nchain being forced to build node implementation themselves for us now to be able to push 1,000 kilobytes onto the Bitcoin ledger? Someone please explain that to me, because I don't understand why we're just now, 10 years later, being allowed to push 1,000 kilobytes, what my computer can download in a split second. We are now just somehow now allowed to do that. 10 years later, after Bitcoin is created, when Satoshi Nakamoto said, word for word, Bitcoin can already scale much larger than that with existing hardware for a fraction of the cost. That was 10 years ago. And then there's the nerve of people to say we support Bitcoin Unlimited. You don't. You don't. And I want to actually give a shout out. Thank you for just putting this up on Twitter. White Rabbit, if you are watching this, wonderful job. This is another example of Bitcoin being unlimited. Again, I wish I could share my screen here. Building she, whoever you are, built an IRC channel, an API, built an API that allows people just to make transactions for, you don't pay anything. So anyone that's never even used Bitcoin SV before, ever, can log into, and with the help of Unwriter helped build the client for this, help build an IRC chat, global IRC chat, and everyone can use it. You don't have to even touch, you don't even know you're using Bitcoin, but it's all being run through White Rabbit's API. Why is this just now happening 10 years later? Seriously. And if you look at it, I mean, it's really fun to, I encourage bitchat.bitdb.network, right? There's a global IRC chat. It's awesome. It's awesome. Someone, Unwriter, put a chat bot called Eli in there, and Eli says some weird things, right? And this is the point I'm trying to get across here, is that we've been focused so long about the block size that we haven't sat and thought about what does it mean to unrestrict Bitcoin. I'm going to, again, for anyone who didn't hear me before, what is the definition of unlimited? It is not limited, unrestricted, unconfined, boundless, and infinite. Bitcoin cannot be infinite if I can't even put 1,000 kilobytes into this ledger that we're all talking about. Blockchain is this great new thing because everyone can use it, and it's immutable and it's there forever, right? But don't use it. Don't put a megabyte. God forbid you put a megabyte onto the chain at one time, right? You have to put that across 1,000 transactions and pay some extra money, right? Instead of letting miners themselves decide, I'm going to put a megabyte onto the chain, right? I'm going to put a megabyte into the chain, and I'm going to charge you X amount for it, right? God forbid, a free market, right? A free market. And the last thing one of the other things I want to talk about, and this is separate from the unlimited thing, the only criticism that I can find from people who, they're really irrelevant in the grand scheme of things, but the people who engage me on Telegram and wherever else, the only argument I can find against Bitcoin SV today is this permissioned mining concept. Okay, so the argument is that Steve Shatters presented about permissioned mining, and they use the word over and over again to scare you, to say Bitcoin is now moving. Bitcoin SV wants permissioned mining, and they want governments to decide who can mine and who can't mine, right? So I'm going to address that because it's ridiculous. I encourage everyone to actually watch Steve's presentation. It's on YouTube about the miner ID, the optional miner ID system. Okay, and I'm gonna explain to everyone who cares why it's actually a good thing and why it's important. And when I say a good thing, I mean it's a good thing that people are going to have the option to do it. I don't mean it's a good thing that people should be forced into it. And I don't know how you would ever force anyone into this at all. But I'm going to take today's Opportune example as a way to understand this, okay? So CoinGeek mined the 17 kilobyte transaction that stored the story that Steve put in. Let's assume. So here's the difference. Here's the problem. So now what do we do? Well, we all, of course, every app developer, every user now wants to put megabytes of data into transactions, right? But if we want to keep Bitcoin as an unrestricted, free, and open system, you cannot force every single miner to accept megabytes of data in a transaction. They have the right to reject those transactions. They have the freedom to choose. Okay. So now, what if CoinGeek wants to offer you a service, and they say, "Hey, you can use our API, and submit a transaction directly to us, it can be up to, let's just say hypothetically, 20 megabytes in size, this transaction. Okay. We will, if you use our service and pay us, okay, so let's say you go to coingeek.com/API/ConnorsIdea.com, okay, and you use their API and you send a 20 meg transaction, and they say if this transaction is broadcast to us using our API, we will guarantee that it is mined in the next block that we find, and we will charge you X amount for it. This is a system that, knowing who the miner is, which is what this miner ID optional thing is all about, can accomplish. I don't need to broadcast. I don't need to make the transaction and broadcast it to random nodes, because I don't know if those nodes are actually going to broadcast those 20 meg transactions to the network until it hits that CoinGeek miner, right? If you actually listen to the presentations about this optional miner ID system, this is all that's been talked about, is allowing miners to identify themselves so they can produce APIs to allow businesses to build on top of them. Ta-da. Done. Okay. Now, I'm not going to even entertain the governments are going to be, they're going to require permission or anything. The system works because it allows miners to outcompete other miners by saying, I'm providing you a service that if you use the service, I will mine the transaction. That's a good thing. It's a very good thing. Okay. So, I don't even know. I mean, I don't even know. Wow, people are in this chat and I could not see it until right now because I was on the wrong tab. So let me see if this is kind of cool. There's a lot of people here. Let's see. Chat messages will be flagged. Right. Very good. People have been talking. I apologize. I did not even know this was here. So I will again reiterate. Corey fortunately had some personal issues come up that he cannot be here this week. Now, my two centrists, thank you for being here. I know you are a SV hater, so thanks for listening. Right. I want to kind of step this further. So, especially if you're just now joining this, which I'm only doing this live because I have trouble ranting with myself. Usually Corey's there to help me. So I was hoping to rant to people, which now I know I can. It's very important to start thinking about this. Like the reason why, again, I call this Bitcoin Unlimited. I don't care what Bitcoin Unlimited has to do, because I actually think they're a trash organization. I apologize, Bitcoin Unlimited. I think you've done some great stuff throughout history. I think you're doing absolutely nothing valuable today. I think your entire system, this past fork, was detrimental. I think you should have actually, if you're going to pick a side, you shouldn't have done the weird thing you did, where you kind of half-assed both of them. Even though you voted against CTOR. So if you actually think your voting system matters, you vote against CTOR, and then you bend over backwards to ABC and you just do it. So what is the point of your voting system to begin with? So everyone wants to explain that to me. So I think you as an organization, you're done. I don't think there's actually any value that you bring. I think the value that you could have brought are things like this. I think that there's value that Bitcoin Unlimited could have done if you actually wanted to make Bitcoin an unlimited system. Do you understand? Do you understand what I'm saying here? Everyone in SV understands that this fork was actually about Craig Wright, because as we know, Peter Risen has his own spat with Craig Wright. So there was no way in hell Bitcoin Unlimited was actually going to choose the SV side, no matter how much they hated the ABC rule set, right? But we're done talking about the fork because there's only one Bitcoin node implementation that is unlimiting Bitcoin. And again, I'm going to reiterate this. What is the definition of Bitcoin? What is unlimited? Not limited, unrestricted, unconfined, boundless, infinite, and vast. The way that we make Bitcoin SV as valuable as possible, and you bring as many miners. So anyone who actually believes that miner centralization is a concern, which seems again to be the argument against SV, is that if we don't allow everyone to catch up to the people who can mine these big blocks, we're going to centralize, right? If we actually believe that's true, the biggest way to combat miner centralization is to make Bitcoin SV as valuable as possible and to incentivize as many miners to come over and mine the chain as possible. Okay. Now, how do you make Bitcoin SV as a commodity ledger the most valuable thing as possible? You allow any single person to build any single application on top of it, which means that miners like CoinGeek, but it doesn't have to be every miner. I just explained why, if you can identify miners, or if miners want to freely identify themselves, they can produce services that allow these things to happen. And you don't actually need every single miner to agree to start accepting 20 megs of data in a transaction, because they have the right to reject that. That's the entire point of what mining is. It's a free system where they can choose to accept or reject things. And this is, again, the entire wrong state of what permissionless is. Everyone goes Bitcoin, and this was, Roger wanted to pretend like this wasn't a narrative that he himself engaged in. But John Ball, also guilty of this, argued that Bitcoin is permissionless peer-to-peer cash, but it's not permissionless. It is by definition a system. I have the white paper right here in front of me. By definition, a system operates by the free will of miners, where miners can choose to accept or reject things. That's how the system works. And if you want to outcompete the others, you might choose to accept things that others are going to reject, and vice versa. I'm sure CoinGeek will not mind taking the transaction fees of people like myself, and I'm sure many of the people watching this that want to build applications that push large amounts of data onto an immutable storage layer. And the reason why Bitcoin Cash will be irrelevant, and the reason why Bitcoin Core will be irrelevant, is because they are not solving this problem. They're not allowing actual businesses to be built on top of Bitcoin that are actually going to bring new value to people. And how do you bring new value to people? You build services like a global IRC channel on Bitcoin. You build services like serverless websites. You build services, and those things really don't matter to an end user. They really don't matter to an end user whatsoever. Okay. But yes, Napster on Bitcoin SV. Of course. You can start just having straight, I'm pushing 20 megs onto this, onto the chain, and I'm going to download 20 megs off of the chain. Eventually, you're going to have video streaming on top of Bitcoin. And this is all stuff that has nothing to do with the block size. It has something to do with the block size because there is a cap. But if you assume the block size is 64 megs, which again, Bitcoin SV will prove in 3 weeks, sustained 64 megabyte blocks, you can push 20 megs onto the chain every 10 minutes, and you're going to pay for it. And it's going to cost you X amount of money. And that's the way it's going to work. That's the way it's always meant to work. And that's the way, and as long as you don't solve that problem, you're going to be irrelevant, especially by the time the block reward happens. That's a fact. Okay. Bitcoin Cash is if you want something kind of like Bitcoin, but without Craig Wright. And that's actually an incorrect statement, because Bitcoin Cash is what you want. Bitcoin Cash has removed the idea of what sound money is all about. And I mean this. Go watch their development meetings. The value of your coin and what the coin is capable of achieving and doing is being arbitrarily decided by a group of people. And it's going to happen. So you can't actually say the same thing, because Bitcoin is sound money that cannot be changed. That's what Bitcoin is. That's what it always was. Bitcoin Cash is now a group of developers. They've fallen symptoms of, we need to start doing everything. They're now going to add, we're going to add Schnorr signatures, and then we're going to fix malleability, because for every reason it needs to be fixed, right? And all this other stuff. They're actually going to change the future direction of Bitcoin. When of the changes going to stop too? There's no actual end goal in sight there. When's the block size going to be uncapped? None of these things are actually Bitcoin. what you have now is a group of people that want to decide every 6 months what kind of cool science experiment they're going to build on top of Bitcoin. That way you can have like, payment channels with anonymous transactions. That's one of the things that they're talking about. Again, I encourage everyone to actually watch these videos, because if you hold Bitcoin Cash, your money is now at the whim of the choices that these developers make. Is that what you signed up for with Bitcoin when you said, I want sound money? I want a group of developers deciding for me every 6 months what's going to happen with my value? Everyone on Bitcoin SV, and we talked about this in London if you were there, everyone in London agreed with one thing. Stop changing Bitcoin and uncap it for everyone to build on top of. And today was the first time we proved to the entire world that that's what Bitcoin SV is going to do. Bitcoin SV didn't introduce anything fancy. They just said, hey, by the way, you can now have 1,000 kilobytes. Ta-da. If anyone can correct me on that number, I would keep saying 1,000. I'd have to look at what Ryan put into BSV, but I believe it's, I really should get the number. Let me just pull it up real quick. Adding big Opportune support to SV. See, I understand where I was going wrong. Okay. 100,000 bytes. 100,000 bytes. Okay, perfect. Wow. All right, good. Am I reading that right? 100,000 bytes. Very good. Yes. Okay. Very good. Okay. Where are we going here? So Bitcoin Unlimited, I'm at 38 minutes. I gotta fill 20 more minutes if we're gonna keep our streak, and this is why I need Corey, because he helps me stay on track here. So where was I going? Yes, I will be trying to go to Montreal in May, and everyone else should too, because it's fun to drink beer with Bitcoin people. And let's see. So the reason why Bitcoin SV will be Bitcoin and the rest will go to zero is very simple, because Bitcoin Cash is not actually committed to doing any of these things. So they brought about increasing the unchained transaction limit. So if anyone that doesn't know, yes, thank you. 100 kilobytes. Thank you, God, for someone correct me finally, but yeah, found that up. So and that will continue to get bigger, right? That's the important thing to remember. It'll 99.99 kilobytes. Fine. Okay. Jeez. Close enough. But anyway, if you start thinking about, okay, well, why is Bitcoin SV going to outcompete every other cryptocurrency? Why is it going to outcompete every other Bitcoin fork? It's very simple. Number one, it is just pure unadulterated Bitcoin. That's the reason why the only argument that can be made against it now is this permission mining thing. It's the only thing I can find anyone else have an argument. You can throw it at me. They go permission mining and then Craig Wright. So it's either reading about Craig Wright or permission mining. Just told you why permission mining is a falsehood and it's a stupid attack, and also why miner ID can be a good thing. Just to explain that. But the other thing is that Bitcoin Cash is helping app developers produce applications that are unrestricted and allowed to be unbounded on top of the way on the protocol layer. Understand that. And thank you, my two centrists, for proving me right, as I've said in every episode. He says BCH, BTC, BSV all bring something different to the table, and that's totally fine. Like I said, Bitcoin Cash people are multi-currency people. That is what they do. And yes, I am talking about BAB as well. You guys all just you want multiple cryptocurrencies, and you don't actually care about sound money. You actually just would prefer for us to be able to send digital cash across to each other, but you don't actually care about the idea of creating sound deflationary money. You instead just want cryptocurrency that's just exchanged peer-to-peer, and that's all there is to it. And you don't care what it's called. You don't care about the fundamental base properties of it. That's why you don't actually care what's going to happen in 6 months on the BCH chain or what happens in 12 months, because you don't care. You don't care at all. You don't actually care about what Bitcoin is. You just want peer-to-peer cash, and the properties of what that is don't matter to you whatsoever, and that's fine. But on Bitcoin SV, we all care about one thing: sound money that is not changed arbitrarily by random groups of people. Okay, Now, but I want to explain why this is important, because people are not seeing this, and they're not going to see it until more applications are built. Bitcoin Cash will not increase the size of Opportun. They're not going to increase the size of push data anytime soon. I guarantee it. Bitcoin Core, not going to increase the size of push data, not going to increase the size of Opportun anytime soon. And you have to start understanding, in order to build applications that are useful, that's what you need. You need to be unbounded and unrestricted in what you can use this ledger for. Okay? It's very simple. We're going to see this very soon. And I'll give you a little teaser as to what I'm building, which, again, all I needed to build this was to be able to encrypt a sentence or a string into Opportun, which I could not easily do with one transaction. There were ways around it. Again, Keyport people got around it. What we're going to build, and pretty much already done, it'll be live soon, is a game that you can play to understand Nakamoto consensus. It's going to be great. It's going to be very simple, but you can log into a website. The website itself is going to read data from the blockchain. So I don't need to even run a server whatsoever. The game is going to be on chain, and it's going to work. I'm not going to spoil the rule set or anything like that, but it's going to work very simply. The data gets read on chain. You can enter the game at any time by making a Bitcoin transaction with the money button. You've now entered the game. Every other person in the game just has to read the blockchain, and they have the current state of the game. I couldn't build what I wanted to build because I couldn't encrypt strings into Opportun without, using. There are ways around it, but it's hacky. It's messy. And now, because Bitcoin SV is committed to being Bitcoin Unlimited, I can do it. How great. So they're building the blocks to do this. Yeah, I'm sure. It's coming, guys. It's coming soon. It's coming soon with Lightning Network, right? Sorry. Sorry, misunderstood that one. My two centrist does not give up. The guy does not give up. And look, brings up Craig Wright every single time. So I appreciate you for doing that every single time that you speak. So where are we at? We got 16 more minutes. I need Corey. You should definitely make an on-chain MUD. A lot of people talking about doing that. And again, if you go to bitchat.bitdb.network, look, I will share this stream into that chat. Communicate with Eli, the chat bot, right? Let's see. Whoops. So my name is now the YouTube link, and then I posted the YouTube link. Oh, there we go. That works. Very good. Bitcoin. This is why Corey's going to listen to this, and he's going to laugh at me. He's going to call me ridiculous because I can't carry a conversation by myself. But this is all right. So, do I end it? Do I keep going for another 15 minutes? Do I rant? Not sure yet. Let's see. Anyone can make MetaNet. See, this is the problem. This is the other problem. So this is Hayden Otto. I'm just going to call, I'm not afraid to call people out here. Hayden Otto, who blocked us on Twitter because he is a soy boy, as he likes to call people. His whole thing, he said, what did he say? He said, MetaNet is no different than MadeSafe. This is the problem. These people, their delusion is so far that they hate Craig Wright so much. They hate him so much that they're just like, well, anything he creates is bullshit and it's a ripoff of other things. And they go, MetaNet is nothing new. MadeSafe tried to do it. The problem is they don't understand, MadeSafe. They don't think blockchain. They actually think blockchain is a special thing. They think cryptocurrency is a special thing. They don't actually see why Bitcoin is special. That's problem number one. Okay. Problem, Amrita, I know you're making exciting things for Bitcoin SV. Very, very happy for you. Very happy to see what you're doing. So MetaNet is the same thing as MadeSafe. First of all, I don't think he even understands what MetaNet is, because I think to actually understand what it is requires some actual research and some study that I don't think he's done. I don't think anybody has done. I don't think the person who said MetaNet is something. Oh, anyone can make MetaNet. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous statement because all MetaNet is, it's Bitcoin used everywhere. It's encrypted communication used everywhere on top of an immutable ledger. So you can be like, anyone can create that, but you didn't create Bitcoin. And everyone thinking that they can recreate cryptocurrency and they can recreate blockchain, you can't, because Bitcoin is an economic system. That's why it works. And this is not new to anybody that's listening to the podcast, that has listened to the podcast, that is in Bitcoin SV. This is not new to the people who understand this stuff. The people who don't understand this stuff are very loud, and they're very they want to tell you that, you know, they know everything. And Craig Wright has not invented anything special. And AOL was the best MetaNet. It's just ridiculous stuff. There's no actual, it's nonsensical. That's what they do. Okay. And, you know, Bitcoin just is focus on Bitcoin. I will focus on Bitcoin right now. How do you create an internet on top of a blockchain? Number one, scale. No other cryptocurrency has scale. Bitcoin SV is committed to scale. That is what they do. They're committed. This is what we are all committed to doing. Okay. And in MetaNet itself, just think of it as Bitcoin at scale. It's think about what Unwriter created today when he said alice.bitdb.network. I encourage everyone to go look at it. When you start to think about this, when we released what you know, very simple thing we built. It's very not complicated at all. It was going to be complicated because we had to use multiple op returns and all this other stuff. It's not complicated because we can now put what was the number? Was it 10 kilobytes? Yeah. No, not 10. 100 kilobytes. 99.99 kilobytes on chain. More than I need. But I can now encrypt things so I can run. Well, you'll see. You'll see what it is. And I've had help doing it, so I'm not doing it all by myself. But very simple game, but it's going to help you understand Bitcoin Nakamoto consensus, where if you all cooperate but compete, you win. If you don't cooperate, you don't win, but you can still compete. It's going to be very interesting to see how it works. And maybe it's not going to work, and maybe I'm just going to lose money funding the game. But I hope I can fund the game and make money back by people who don't understand Bitcoin. And if enough people understand Bitcoin, I lose my money. But at least you guys all understand Bitcoin, right? And maybe I'll let people donate to the pot to keep the game going. You know, who knows? But the more people that don't understand Bitcoin, the more I win. And I get my money back, or I get extra money. So let's see. All right. So how do we help? What do we plebes do? So it's very simple, actually. If you want to start understanding, this is what people are not understanding. Not understanding this, and you need to look at Unwriter's stuff. Okay, it's very important. Go read what Unwriter is doing. It's going to be very unfamiliar to you, but look very simply at the queries that he's creating. All Unwriter is doing, he put it very perfectly. I should pull up what he said. He put something very perfect in a message where he said specifically, I'm just building you simple tools and I'm showing you how to use them. Build on top of that. Okay. So if I encourage you, if you want to understand this, you don't have to be a coder. You don't have to be a programmer. That of course helps. But I guarantee you, if you set your mind to this, you can build applications. If you have a use case for an unbounded, unrestricted, immutable ledger, here's what you can do. Go understand what Unwriter is doing. Okay. Go to codeacademy.com and learn JavaScript. Okay. It'll take you a little bit, not going to take you overnight. Go learn JavaScript. It's a very easy language to learn. Okay. Very simple. Next, go get a template website. There's plenty of them. And then after that, learn how to use the money button, because the money button will be the way that you interact with the blockchain. It's going to be the way that you interact with the blockchain. People are not understanding how powerful the money button is yet, and it's going to become more and more powerful the more data we can put onto the blockchain. Okay. Build a very simple website. Put a money button on there and test it out. Learn how to do a BitDB query. I'm telling you, if you focus your mind on this, you can do this very, very, very easily. Okay. And now anything that you can think of pushing data on chain and pulling it off chain and the benefits of running something not on a server, not having to pay for DDoS protection. Okay. Not having to worry about the security of running things on a server. Build it. It's going to be very simple. I promise you. I promise you. JavaScript, I really think it's a good starting point. Well, I'm only saying JavaScript because Moneybutton has put together the BSV library, and it's very simple to use. So if there's another thing to use, yeah, I know you can shit on JavaScript all you want. I don't give a shit. I'm just saying it's very easy to learn, very easy to use. That's all I'm saying. And there's a BSV library that allows you to do stuff very easily. That's all. Very simple. Okay. Java's Bitcoin J also, yes, very good. And I should put this these steps at the top. So a week of this is perfect. Okay. So thank you. MetaNet ICU. So MetaNet ICU, everyone should be members of that. If you're not, everyone should check out that link. A week of Unwriters. So you can look at everything Unwriters release. And I cannot overstate how, like, what he's doing is he's building the framework for anyone. I think he said he's building the pipes in tubes. That's what we need. And this is my problem. This is why I'm bringing up Bitcoin Unlimited. I'm sorry for making this point 8,000 times in this hour. We are not in unlimited Bitcoin if we just increase the block size. Let's assume we can have terabytes of blocks tomorrow. You can't actually build anything useful as long as I can't push data onto the chain in one fell swoop. Imagine using like Dropbox and having to go through other hoops. It should be as very simple. Boom, boom, done. Whether it's done in one transaction or if it has to be done in multiple transactions, it's a pain for the developers, for the pipes. You see what I mean? The pipes are easier if you don't have to worry about that. BitSocket. I encourage everyone to look at Bits. Again, go look at that metanet.icu link about a week of Unwriter. Cannot be overstated. No, I don't know who he is at all. And this is the point. It doesn't matter who he is. This is the most remarkable thing. And I'm also assuming his gender. Yeah. So what we're doing very soon, we're going to put out a game. Everyone can learn about Bitcoin Nakamoto consensus. It's going to be fun. It's going to run on chain. Ideally, I'd like the website to be on chain. Don't think I can do that. Don't know enough about it. I don't know anything about front end stuff. In fact, the website is probably going to look like shit. Sorry about it. But it's going to teach you how to play Bitcoin. It's going to teach you how to play the game of Bitcoin without having to buy mining hardware. It's going to be really fun. Everyone's going to like it. Okay. Now, again, I cannot do this by myself. It's very clear. I get very scatterbrained. Corey helps keep this on track here, so I apologize. Thank you for the like of the button. We don't tell people to do that, and that's a whole thing. Hi, Kurt. Thanks for joining. I had something else I was going to talk about, and I lost it because I don't keep myself focused or organized. I'll just say the very last thing because I'm ending this at an hour. I'm gonna eat dinner. I called this Bitcoin Unlimited for two reasons. Number one, I knew I was going to catch some attention. If you're going to think I'm talking about Bitcoin Unlimited, the group, which I did talk about them because, as I said, they're pretty much a worthless organization. And the thing is that the ABC people knew that. They understand it's a worthless organization. That's why their votes really don't matter. That's why they vote on random shit. That's why Omri is just he just votes on whatever the hell he wants for those things. I don't think a Bitcoin Unlimited will ever be a good idea, to be honest with you. I think it played its part in the big block war. Not to take away from they've done research. There's good people in it. I'm not taking away from any of that. I'm just saying very simply, there's no point for them existing anymore. They've done, what they should be doing is testing this stuff. They should be testing. I've increased the number of transactions I can chain together. That's what they should be doing. They should actually be committed to unlimiting Bitcoin, but they're not. They're not. I don't even know what they do. They blew their shot at getting funding a long time ago, which was a shame. But if we want to actually grow the value of the ledger, application developers need to be able to build unrestricted potential on top of the chain. Okay, that's very important. And if you're not committed to that, I don't think you're committed to Bitcoin Unlimited. And that's my problem with the organization itself. And I'm friends with some of it's JC. It's this guy who understands nothing. So I see you in Telegram. You understand nothing about Bitcoin. Okay. I wish that I could have all these people that they talk insane, stupid stuff. Wish I could have a conversation with you and I could broadcast it to 1 million people. The problem is the people who need to hear this aren't going to hear this, but I'm going to say this. You don't understand Bitcoin whatsoever. You think the Lightning Network is a scaling solution, no matter. You can prove to someone that the earth is round and you can show them the math and you can show them why it's round, but until they go up to space and see it, they're not going to believe it. But if you are interested, you should go back and watch. We've broken down the topology and why the Lightning Network fails. It's very simple. Okay. Don't waste time punching sand. You're probably right. I'm not meaning to be a dick here. I'm just saying very simply, that's all I'm saying. So, sorry, JC, got distracted. This chat thing, it's kind of fun, but it's not good. It's not good. Okay. All right. Last thing I'm going to say, and I've said this 8,000 times now. Again, this is what happens when I haven't eaten and I drink beer and I don't have Corey to keep me on track. Sven, how you think a miner's day will look in 10 years, mate? How you think a miner's day will look in 10 years? Sven, how you think a miner's day will look the day in the life of a miner? It's going to be like a bank. So actually, I encourage everyone to watch. I know, God forbid, but you should go watch the presentation Craig Wright gave in Hong Kong, maybe. It was before the fork. And he talked about, I'm not smashed. No, I just haven't eaten anything. Okay. Jesus Christ. I need to stop looking at this thing. You should go watch the presentation Craig Wright gave where he talked about, he envisions miners being banks, the modern banking industry. Now, again, this scares idiots who think that there's something wrong with banks. The same people who will get a loan to buy a house, right? The same people who will get a loan to buy a car are going to tell you how the banks are evil and how we don't need banks and we're going to overthrow the banking system. And what they actually mean by that is they actually believe that their investment is so powerful that it's going to overthrow the banking industry and they're going to make so much money that they will be themselves sitting there holding Bitcoins is going to be the new bank. Okay. It's ridiculous, but banks are not going to go away. So when Craig, he talked about his vision for miners being the banks, essentially, like as respected as banks, right? And you get to understand this. And I'm going to address this to Sken. Again, these people that I really should not care about, but they go on and they say stupid stuff all the time. When you talk about permissioned mining, you're ignoring the actual benefits that an identified miner can provide in the services that they can provide. Okay. And we talked about the very specific example of this where CoinGeek could provide an API to allow you to upload or to broadcast large data transactions. That is a useful service that people want. That is a useful service that will have value. This is exactly what is going to happen in the future. You're going to use just again, imagine the Wells Fargo API to have a smart contract, or I know, God forbid I say Wells Fargo, but this is what I mean. It would be great if Wells Fargo started to become a large miner, because the whole point is that it doesn't matter who's mining. They're incentivized to do honest things. This is why people don't understand Bitcoin. This is why none of the people who are arguing against Bitcoin SV actually understand this stuff. And this is why I would love for everyone to go to Richard Hart's, please, his Twitter page. And he talked about this whole debate thing. I responded to him. He didn't respond to me. He responded to everyone else. I would love to tell his idiot audience and all of him. So I don't think his audience is stupid. I think his audience is clueless. I think he's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I would love everyone go to his Twitter feed. We post on there and tell him to debate us. Okay. Because I want to explain this to people. People who are arguing against SV don't actually understand Bitcoin. That's the fact of the matter. They want it to be something that it's not. And that's very unfortunate that you can want it to be something, but it's not Bitcoin. You can create Bitcoin anarchy, Bitcoin anti-bank. I don't care. BAB. Bitcoin anti-bank. You can go make BAB all you want. I don't care. Okay. Not my problem. But if you want to sit there and be like, we're going to overthrow the banks and all this sort of stuff, you don't understand anything. You don't understand Bitcoin. You're the same person who's going to get a mortgage and a loan from the bank. The same person who's going to get a car loan. And you're going to argue that that's somehow a bad thing, that loans are a bad thing. And so you asked the question, the original question was, what's the day in the life of a miner? It's going to be an institution as large as a bank, and they're going to process billions of transactions, and they're going to provide services. They're going to provide smart contract services. They're going to probably provide transaction templates that will be executed with APIs. We can't fathom it. We can't fathom it. Over an hour now. If you think we should do this live every week, we might. I don't know. Next week, we're going to get Daniel Krawitz on. We were talking to him. That guy obviously understands Bitcoin much more than a lot of the idiots. I think he said he's down to do it. I think he is. Yeah. He's down to do it. So we're going to have him on, and we're going to talk about the Bitcoin network. So thank you guys for, I thought you understood Bitcoin. JC, I'm happy to have a conversation with you. All right. The problem is you can't hang out in these CoinSpice Telegram groups and expect to get real information. This is the problem. You can't expect to get information from the cryptocurrency world. Okay. That's the problem. You need to go back. This is my advice to anybody who's like, this guy was being an idiot and he just thinks people don't understand Bitcoin. Go back and read the white paper. I will selfishly encourage you to watch the videos we did on the white paper. Tell me what we got wrong, because I've yet to have anyone actually do that. Okay. I'm going to diss the spice. Oh, I enjoy the conversation. Actually, they blocked a lot of people. I only spend time in there because I find it interesting. I find it fun. But I also, there will be a time where you all want to use the only blockchain that exists, which is Bitcoin SV. And I will be there to welcome you. Okay. I'm there for you at that time. That's all there is to it. Okay. So the reason why I'm going to stick with you is because when Bitcoin SV is the only thing that really is relevant, and you guys are all complaining about Craig Wright still, I'll be there to help you understand why it's important. Daniel Krawitz, as he said, he will help you integrate you into Bitcoin SV. That's all I'm here to do. Okay. I'm here to help integrate you into Bitcoin when you want to accept it. Okay. So ignore cryptocurrency. Okay. Cryptocurrency is a pointless thing. It's done. It's past its prime. Bitcoin is something. Yeah. Not a cult, Colin. Not a cult. Not a cult whatsoever. You're right. Not a cult whatsoever. It is a cult. It is a cult. That's the entire point. So if you don't, this is what me and Daniel are going to be talking about. Actually, Daniel has very good thoughts about this. You have to understand what a cult will like. cryptocurrency is a cult. That's the whole point. That's why people actually think they're going to make money off it. There's one cult that's going to win, probably. So, sorry, Colin. So Daniel Crowe is only interested in investors' opinions. He only needs more minions. Don't know what that means. Very good. I'm done with this. So, yeah. The word crypto. Very good. Very good. Very good. Very good. All right. Thank you. Adios.